I'd like to say good day, and we're going to talk about cycling and JCU and the late evolution of the bug at JCU. So I didn't used to be a cycling advocate. I didn't used to be a cyclist at all until I migrated to Australia, and I was quite challenged by driving the car on the wrong side of the road. So I decided I'd be safer if I got a bike, and it's so much cheaper. And so we did that, and it was really difficult at first. I used to live in Gulliver, and I would cycle to JCU, and I would drop my son at school on the way by bicycle, and it was really hard. And there were lots of days I didn't think I could do it because I was so unfit. But I had to do it every day, and after a few months, it wasn't hard anymore. And that was really great, and it was kind of I got to be the most fit I ever was. So I had a $99 mountain bike that I bought at Kmart, and I rode that bike for 8 years commuting, and thought that was pretty normal and pretty good. And in that time I started to get interested in the other bike commuters, because there weren't very many of us in those days. This is the mid-90s, and I joined the JCU Bug, which was an email list, and the JCU Bug in those days was led for many years by Carl Van Wyck, who did all kinds of good stuff and banded us all together to point out to the university the kinds of work that needed to be done to improve things for cyclists. And so that was my first introduction to the Bug. And so the evolution from there was to meet up with like-minded people and friends from my husband's work, who were actual cyclists and who actually had road bikes and things, and they got us interested in group riding and social riding and upgrading our bicycles. So I went from my Huffy mountain bike to a hybrid, and I cycled I rode that for a year, but it was too big for me. But I told myself, well, if I can put 10,000 kilometers on this one, I'll get a road bike. And so at 10,000 kilometers, I got a road bike, and I've been riding a road bike primarily ever since. And always commuting to the uni on whatever bike I had. I would never ride anything but my road bike now much, because it's just such a pleasure and a joy to have under you. I always said the best part of my job was the commute, and I loved my job at JCU. So that says a lot about the quality of the commute. But it hasn't always been perfect. We had really good cycling infrastructure into the uni from the time that I started here, and that was really what made it possible and comfortable to start commuting. The bikeway was all in place, and you could come in the Douglas side or you could come in this way, and there was really nice facilities in place. And over time it really irritated the members of the Bug that we were losing amenity with every development. First they put in the hospital and the roundabout and ruined what was just a straight through bikeway on those approaches, and then they put in the hospital car park, and they put in the Tech NQ, and they dug up the bikeway and ruined the amenity of the bikeway on that approach, and then you didn't have a way to come in that didn't have an element of danger. And that's when we started to really reinvigorate the Bug and to say, well, we've really got to get this message into the administration, and we started to do that, and that was with Carl still at the helm. Carl eventually left JCU for greener pastures, and he asked me to become the president, so I did become the president, which was great, because then you get to go to really interesting meetings with people like Alan Carpenter, who's the Discovery Rise guy, and who is interested in the Bug's opinions about planning and amenity for cyclists. And I was at a meeting with him years ago across campus, and we walked across here together at the end of the meeting to go to our respective buildings. And as we walked by this building, which had been recently decommissioned, it was full of cooling plant and was decommissioned because they built the central cooling unit. I said, what's going to happen to that building? Can we please have that for an end-of-ride facility? We really need one. There's nothing for the undergraduates. We've been for too long catering to the staff and the postgraduates who have a home in a building, but for the undergraduates who don't have a home, they've really got nothing and nowhere. And he said, that's great, we're going to do it. And he did it. So I didn't actually do anything, it was my idea. And I certainly credit Alan with putting the idea to senior management, and Trish Brand, who is the woman who holds the purse strings at James Cook University, for financing it. It needed a lot more work than we thought that it would, but they still managed to get that building ready for us for a very low price, despite the fact it needed a new roof and a new floor poured in it. And they almost didn't do it because it couldn't have showers and toilets, which they wanted, and so they weren't going to do it. And I said, no, I'd rather have, I drive a Volkswagen, you know, I'd rather have a Volkswagen than nothing. I don't need a Rolls Royce, that's okay. So I got my Volkswagen and I'm very happy with it. And so yeah, it took a couple years from the first idea to the fruition of the bike shed, but it was wonderful to have it built. And I've given you some photos, and you can access my old blog, and this kind of the story of the shed is all in the blog. And it took a couple of years to really catch on. I think that people, it was kind of too good to be true, and people thought that it was for special people and not for them. And I had to really get out there and advertise its availability. So I started going and having a table at all of the O-Week markets and all of that stuff, and just giving out maps and giving out forms to access the bike shed, and letting the undergraduates know that this is actually not too special for you, this is for you actually. So please use it. And not very long after that, once this got up and running and the use started to increase, then they did the facility at the School of Medicine, which is the sort of facility that they had wanted to provide all along, which has got 2 lovely showers and toilets, and the bike shed as well. So, you know, there's been a lot of goodwill from the university to do that. They didn't manage to include end-of-ride facilities in the new undergraduate building, which was too bad, but it was a budget constraint, and they felt that it was the kind of thing that you could maybe add on afterwards. Trish Brand shares my love of the, I don't know if they still even make them, the penny farthing end of bike ride facility that you can buy. It's the size of a single car park and fully self-contained end of ride facility, and I think that we both still, after all these years, harbor the desire to get one of those on campus. Just because they're so cool. They're fully standalone and very cool. But anyway, well, I think there is a change that's a generational change that's coming about. It's very hard to fight people's perceptions that a car is desirable, and that there is status associated with having a car that will never be associated with having a bicycle, even a bicycle as nice as my road bike. But I think that's coming as a generational change. I've never owned my own car in Australia, and I've never wanted for one. We've always had one in the family, which has spent most of our, we've had 3 cars since we lived in Australia. We've been here for 20 years, and they last a long time because they spend so much time parked under the house, because my husband commutes by bicycle and so did I for all that time. And so we kind of got it. I guess for me it's the amenity. I just think that it's so much more pleasant to ride a bike than to drive a car. And one of the things that's really encouraged me to get the bike shed up and going, and to get the Green Bikes program going, to get bikes available to especially our foreign students, is, you know, I kind of started that in a small way on my own. People would give me a bike and I'd give it to a student if they asked me. And now it's a big thing, and we've rehomed so many bikes and gotten so many students on bicycles. And the reason I thought that was important wasn't just because I wanted to empower them to not beggar themselves to the cost of a car, which is exceedingly an inefficient way to spend your money. But they always would return the bikes to me serviced, because I charged them no money. I'd say, when you're done with it, get a service and give it back to me for the next student. And I never lost a bicycle. They all came back. And all of the students said that they thought that Townsville was nice until they got on a bike. And then they thought it was outstanding and beautiful because they weren't just stuck out on the roads. You know, Townsville's a beautiful city, and you can get everywhere by road, but it's so much more beautiful to get there on the bikeway and go along the river and go along the Strand on your bike and go to Pallarenda on your bike. It's so much more beautiful to hear the birds and smell the smells. and feel the, especially in the summer. I love the summer. I love the soft, humid air of summer, and it feels so wonderful. And they just said that yet when they were on the sun bus or in a friend's car, they just couldn't appreciate how wonderful Townsville was. So that's important. If you can organize your local government to have 1 or 2 days a year that a route is closed to cars and people can be set free on their bicycles, they will feel set free. And then they'll want more. But you have to give them that first feeling. You have to give them that first opportunity to realize that if it's safe, if it's made safe, even for just 1 day, you can experience how easy it is, how quick it is. People are always surprised at how quickly you can get from the city all the way out to JCU, which seems like a very long way in the car because you spend so much time sitting at traffic lights. But if you jump on the bikeway and come straight through without a single stop, it's the same time and none of the frustration. And they don't know that until they do it. And you can choose. We're so lucky to have the choice. We're so lucky to have safe infrastructure in Townsville, and it is quite rare. And it's quite expensive, but I guess the easy way forward is to reclaim a part of the streets. The streets are all paid for, and I won't be happy as a cycling advocate, which I've kind of stepped away from a little bit, but I still follow what's happening. And there is an increasing movement to reclaim a part of the street for cyclists. We've paid the money. We've built the infrastructure, and a long line of parked cars isn't using our transport infrastructure effectively. We need to free up that space for movement and stop paying a high price for parking. And that's becoming an increasingly attractive option for local governments because it's no cost, but there's still currently too much ill will, but I think that we'll get there.